Welcome to the Landlord Advocate.
Hello and welcome to the Landlord Advocate with Matthew Paletz, CEO of Paletz Law, a Michigan-based firm celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. Under Matthew's leadership, Paletz Law has grown into one of the Midwest's largest and most respected firms focused on landlord representation. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and in this episode, we're digging into the story behind the brand, how the firm got started, what's changed, what still works, and how Matthew sees the future of landlord-tenant law evolving in a world where property owners are often forced to play defense. Matthew, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Let's start from the beginning. This is your 30th anniversary of Paletz Law. Congratulations, by the way. That's incredible. Tell us how the firm was founded and what it was like when you took over the reins.
Sure. Well, the firm was founded back in 1995 by my mother, Susan. And at the time, she really focused our practice on divorce. She was amazing divorce lawyer. But she had this little fledgling part of her revenue in representing some landlords and property owners. And, a lot of kids who end up going into law and work with their parents, they kind of, it's a little bit of a interesting path. It's not usually linear. It's, I did 3 tours of duty with her. I was a runner and a sort of a file clerk, and then I left, and then came back and during law school, and then left again. And then we decided to try and see if we could make a go of it in 2003. And I had no desire whatsoever to follow in her footsteps as far as divorce. No, thank you. But I was intrigued by the property management side of things and how we could best represent landlords, and also running the business. That's my passion. I'm entrepreneurial first. And so I thought that would be an interesting vehicle to try and make it a go. And so over time, it was very clear to me that the future was going to be representing property owners and landlords, and divorce was starting to wane. Not to get too boring, I guess, but the Great Recession, for all the people above the age of 30 who remember that, that really, interestingly enough, took its toll on divorce practice. And there was a huge housing component that also was a problem, which people don't understand. When the housing market plummeted, that really affected divorce. Not only did you have people who were basically, when they were in the middle of a divorce, their house was their biggest marital asset. And so during the case, at the end of the case, what would happen is the lawyers would kind of take their cut out of the proceeds of the sale, and it was pretty hunky-dory. But when the housing market plummeted, and then you had people, not only could they not sell their homes, they were actually divorced and living under the same roof for like years later. It was really bizarre. It was very clear to me that although, yes, unfortunately, people would still have need for divorce, that was not going to be a sustainable future. And so started just work tirelessly and diligently to try and grow our market share as far as representing property owners. And, it just kind of started from there, and just we kept going. And then ultimately, I bought my mother out. That's another story for another day. And then we had to do a major rebrand at that time, because a lot of our clients really didn't know our identity. Were we divorce? Were we sort of, fledgling in property ownership representation? And so we had to do a whole overhaul. We had to do a new website. We had to do a whole brand identity, new logo, new everything. We actually changed the name and shortened it to Paletz Law. And, we were getting our legs underneath us at that time, and we were really starting to go on the ascension. That was in 2017. And 2018, 2019, we were in the middle of that rebrand, and we were like, okay, the 20s are going to be our year. It's going to be our decade. And then I think you remember what happened in 2020. COVID hit.
But I'm trying to block it out, Matthew.
Yeah. And so it was like, wow, we had gotten so, it'd been so much work to get to that point, and then it felt like just the bottom drop.
Yeah.
And so at that time in 2020, it was a very difficult time for landlords, because there was a lot of regulation and laws that were just preventing landlords from even exercising their normal remedies to get their property back. Courts were closed. There were eviction moratoriums. And so all of a sudden we had made all these gains to try and pivot to this practice area, and the doors were shut down for like the entire year. So it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2021 and 2022 and 2023 was a complete rebuild from the ground up. And we really just started to, get that behind us in the rear view in 2024. And 2025 has been a great year. And we're just going to continue to build on that momentum. So the 30 years, as I say, we've gone through the Great Recession, a family succession, and then COVID, but we're still here and we're flourishing, and we're just out there every day grinding and fighting and winning for our clients. It's and that's what it's all about, the client, and trying to just continue to let them know that we're out here as a voice fighting for them. So that's the 30 years. It's a pretty interesting ride.
Yeah, definitely a very interesting ride. Okay, so I understand. So you were like, okay, we want to pivot away from divorce law. Totally understandable. Your website says that you're landlord advocates, not general practitioners. So let me ask you this. Why was it important for you to go all in on landlord law in particular? It's pretty niche.
Yeah, I believed it then, and I see nothing to change my opinion on this, that really to make it in law today, you've really got to be a specialist in a particular practice area. Did I choose to, back in the day, to have the foresight to say, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to represent landlords and get into property law? No.
Yeah.
That was not really part of the plan. But I found that because I cut my teeth in this business as a collections attorney. So as you can see, I do all the glamorous work. I do evictions and collections.
Yeah, all the fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, really. No, I just found that I liked the business side of things, and I really liked how entrepreneurial and business property owners are. We represent quite a few multifamily housing consortiums throughout the country. And, I also like the idea of being a negotiator and a litigator and being a problem solver for our clients. And that's what really intrigued me. And so making sure that the practice really sort of was emblematic of those goals, it just seemed a natural fit. And so to double, triple, quadruple down on it, that's how I believe that we were going to have some success. And that's what we've been able to do to grow us to be one of the largest representatives of landlords and property owners in the Midwest and probably in the country. It's just, I found that there was if you look online, for example, Kevin, everything online is about the tenant. And look, tenants have rights and those should be respected. But, it's much more popular in the political scene, in the legislative scene, to just be championing that. And really what they don't understand is property owners are the cornerstones of our society. Private property rights is part of the fundamental founding of our country. And, you shouldn't be demonizing, people who are offering housing. And in fact, you should be embracing that. And so I found that not only being an advocate in the courtroom for them was important, but really because the public sphere is so tilted against them, somebody had to be out there arguing for them. And that really resonated for me during COVID, especially because it was just every day was an assault on private property ownership and landlords. And I was thinking to myself, we're not really doing much anyway. We're not in the court. So to me, I really decided to become a much robust and loud screaming from the rooftops in the middle of nowhere here in Michigan of just why landlords are important. And I found that my clients really appreciated that because no one was sticking up for them. And so I really truly believe that being an advocate means not only fighting for them in the courtroom, but you got to fight for them in the public sphere as well. So that was the idea. That was the thought behind it.
We've all had a bad landlord, or most of us have had good landlords too. The Hollywood narrative a lot of times is the bad super, the bad landlord, whatever. Do you think that contributes to why that perception is the way that it is, that narrative you spoke of?
Yeah, I mean, landlords are an easy target.
Yeah.
Look, no one wants to pay the mortgage, right? No one wants to pay the rent. But it is necessary. We all have bills to pay. Right. Yeah, there's going to be good actors, there's going to be bad actors. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of, for example, mom and pop landlords that I represent. they're looking at this as retirement vehicles. They're looking at this as an opportunity to pay for college. You know, it's a profession and a service that is necessary, especially when you look at the housing market right now. What a disaster! There's a lot of contributing factors. That there's a lot of forecasts. There's going to be a lot of stormy clouds on the horizon. Pretty much everybody in the blogosphere is talking about this, right? Well, guess what? People are going to need places to live. They're going to need places to live, and so Hollywood and other legislatures and politicians make it an easy target, but it's really, in my opinion, unfair.
We talked about this niche. Obviously, you're not the only firm that handles landlord tenant work, but what sets Paletz Law apart?
Well, I guess it would be the two T's, my team and our technology. I would say that would be what sets us apart. I'm really proud of the team that we've put together here. We had to rebuild this company, as I said, from the ground up after COVID. And what was really gratifying was I had 20 employees at the time before COVID hit, and I had to furlough all but 5 of them. Our doors were shut down. And the people, I made invitations to people to come back, and almost everyone accepted my invitation to come back when we reopened. And to me, that was really humbling. And I made a promise to them. I said I would never make them regret that decision. And I appreciated their trust in me as the leader of this firm. And I appreciated their understanding of, hey, we had some good things going. We were on the ascension, and now they wanted to come back and help us rebuild. And so between that, and then we were out of necessity, we had a lot of individuals who were clerks at the time who we had to sort of wait out while they finished law school. And then they ended up staying on with us as full-fledged attorneys. And a lot of them are still here. That was also a pretty amazing, although it took us some time and we had to be patient during a very unforgiving time that didn't allow you to be patient because it was so chaotic. But nonetheless, they took that path and they elected to stay, and they trusted me with helping them as they start off in their careers as lawyers. So that's been a pretty amazing and again humbling experience. And then also our technology. One of the things that I know that sets us apart from our competitors is that for example, we have the Paletz portal, which allows our clients to track their status of their cases 24/7. There's also communication through there. We're working on other things like document exchange and whatnot. These are all things that help us evolve and stay ahead of our competitors to offer a great client experience for an otherwise, as you know, unpleasant experience that they're unfortunately having a non-rent producing unit and dealing with individuals that sometimes are trying to get over, trying to make that at least as most pleasant experience as possible so that they can stay on it and be as efficient. So those are what we're trying to do: equip our clients with the tools to make them more profitable and put them on a path for more long-term cash flow positivity and success. So those, what I would say, are the things that set us apart: our team and our technology.
You've said before that you're more than just a paper pusher. You don't just file paperwork. What does that look like in practice?
Yeah, I appreciate you for breaking that up, because look, at the end of the day, sure, I don't have any delusions of grandeur, right? You don't have to be like the greatest attorney ever. I used to say you don't have to be Johnny Cochran, although I don't know how many people know that reference anymore.
I do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Listen, I was quoting Ferris Bueller's Day Off the other day, and some of my associates had no idea what I was saying.
I know, it's getting weird, isn't it?
Well, I have people here who are like millennials, Generation Z. I have older people, younger. One of the challenges in business is, trying to talk multi-generationally.
Yeah.
I have 2 teenagers. They keep me pretty abreast of all the nonsense words that they speak, but I try to stay relevant with that. But yeah, and I lost my train of thought. See, I have ADD. So
no, that's okay. That's okay. I started losing mine too, because I was thinking about movies that you were talking about, because I've had these conversations lately too. I just was talking about what it looks like in practice of being more than
a paper pusher.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, as I said, I have no delusions of grandeur, right? What we do, you don't have to be the greatest lawyer in the world to do it, but you have to be organized and you have to have systems in place to make sure that you're being efficient and delivering a good, expeditious service for your client. Okay. But you also have to do it understanding that your clients have, always have certain exposure to things. For example, they got to make sure that they're in compliance with regulations. Michigan hasn't met a regulation that they didn't like to implement against landlords, and there's a lot of that afoot right now. And so, for example, it's not enough to just post a notice on someone's door. You have to understand, hey, are there fair housing implications to this? Are there other compliance issues? And so, what we try to market ourselves and position ourselves as a leader in this space is saying, look, you might have a lower level competitor that might just be able to post a notice, but do they understand, hey, how is this going to impact you on, as I said, for housing? How is this going to impact if a tenant files bankruptcy? How is this, are your leases up to date with all the applicable language? Are you functioning in a way that's also, protecting you from potential liability? And if you don't have a lawyer that's looking at this multidimensionally to protect your interests and to protect you, then you're doing yourself and your investors a disservice by not having the best in the business to handle that portfolio for you. And that's if I didn't have confidence in ourselves and the product that we deliver, what's the point? So
Okay. We've talked about how the system is fairly stacked against landlords. What do you generally say to those that are feeling pretty burnt out because of it?
Well, we're not just attorneys, but we're also counselors, and it feels like sometimes I'm just counseling my property managers because they're human.
Yeah.
I think that's what people forget sometimes is that they're just human beings who are trying to do a job, and they're getting yelled at a lot. And I always say to them, look, just because someone's loud doesn't make them right.
Right.
Yeah. And so what I tell them is, look, try not to take it personal, and you've got to keep your resolve. And at the end of the day, you need someone in your corner who's fighting for you. And if you don't feel like your landlord is fighting for you, is defending you, then you have the wrong lawyer. And for us, it's very important that our clients understand that, look, when an angry tenant says to one of my clients, I'm going to get my lawyer, that should bring the biggest smile to their face because it's like, hey, I know Matt and his team, they'd love to make your lawyer's acquaintance. And to me, that's what the feeling that I want to instill in them, that make sure that they understand that I've got your back and my team's going to protect you and going to take care of business on your behalf.
I like that. So as you look ahead to the next 30 years of practice, what's your vision for the firm and for landlord law in general?
Well, I'm in my 50s, and so 30 years from now, that sounds crazy. But hey, listen, it is in the genes. My mother, God bless her, she's still, as I said, she made her bones as a divorce attorney. She's still mediating cases.
Wow.
And she's 80. Okay. And my father's father, my grandfather, he practiced for 50 years in North Dakota. So it's in the blood. So
Clearly.
Probably still be practicing in 30 years. I see, look, there's AI, okay, that's seriously making large incursions in every business space. It's also going to make its way into the law space.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine what it's going to be like in 3 years, much less 30 with that, right?
Well, and it's very problematic though, because AI still tries to paint things with a broad brush. Like I had a client the other day in a panic saying, hey, we didn't meet these notification requirements, and it sent us down this rabbit hole. Well, it turned out those notification requirements were from Florida, but AI didn't know the difference between Michigan and Florida law, so it just said that, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a long way to go before I'm replaced by a robot, or I can download my consciousness into some sort of synthetic body to do law for me.
Well, then you can do it forever.
There you go, right? But look, as long as we continue to adhere to our core principles and our branding, which is being responsive to our clients and fighting for our clients, I see good things on the horizon for our firm. Again, we're only as good as the people that we have here, and I'm very, very confident in the next generation of leaders of this firm. It's in our DNA to be responsive and and as I said, to be fighters for our clients. And if you keep it that simple and try not to, get distracted by everything else, good things will happen. And so we're just going to continue to put one step in front of the other and continue to double and triple and quadruple down on our technology to enhance the client experience, to make their life easier, to more automate the landlord-tenant process, which is a unique area of practice where it does lend itself to that. I think as long as a client sees that we're fighting and that we're trying to make their lives easier, I think only good things can come of that. And that's what I see for the future.
Well, I love that. That's really good. Well, that's it for today's episode, the first episode of the Landlord Advocate. To learn more about Matthew Paletz and the firm's work in Michigan as well as Ohio, visit paletzlaw.com. And don't forget to like our videos, leave us a review, subscribe where you can. We have lots more great content coming your way, and we want you to be a part of it. Matthew, thank you so much for the introduction. It was great getting to know you. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.